as I said, we're going to do the 10-minute skimmed version. So going to keep this real quick and brief. Actually, when I looked at the list, we had like 35 questions asked from CFC parents, and probably 15 of them were kind of the same question. And they really were all asking, where the heck do I start? So this is going to be 10 minutes on where do you start? And then, as I said, we'll get a little deeper into the weeds as we go through. So I've explained a little bit about myself and what I do. And I created what I describe as the recruitment roadmap. Essentially what it is, it's a checklist. But you go through these different stages to eventually get to where you want to go, which is get an offer from a school. So you have to check off all 7 stages, and I consider these are the vital stages that we must go through. 2 key words I'm going to use throughout this whole presentation: be realistic and be persistent. Now, the coaches don't want to hear the persistent part, but they can close their ears to that. The realistic part is, I want you guys to figure out the levels of play that you can play at. And that's when I started the conversation before, that's exactly what I was getting at. Parents flying in from all over the place, and they really couldn't play at the level that they were trying out for. So that's when I talk about be realistic. And then be persistent. Sending an email and then waiting 3 months and then sending another email, that's not being persistent. If Jake was out that day, he gets so many emails that if he misses that one, he'll never see it again. So I want us to be persistent where we're doing this, not every week, but every couple of weeks. Hey, trying to get into a conversation with these coaches so we kind of know where we stand. But it does take work. Unless you're on the national team or you're Kelly Boudreau, coaches are not knocking down your door. So you have got to go after these guys. First thing I ask everybody to do is create a highlight video. And the basic reason for that is you want to start capturing your footage from as early age as possible. No, not early age, not 4 and 5-year-olds, but let's say as a freshman, you score a 30-yard screamer in the top corner as a freshman. You better believe I want to see that on your highlight tape. So get those cameras rolling early. And then we can start taking clips of your freshman year. We can add them together to your sophomore year, and we can start to create a highlight tape, which is essentially what you're going to send out to college coaches to get coaches interested in you. Secondly, we're talking about is, where can I play? So like I just said at the beginning, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. And then there's non-NCAA programs like NAIA and JUCO. So understanding the different levels. Do you want to play at Princeton with Kelly, where not only are you at one of the top academic schools in the world, you're also trying to juggle one of the top soccer programs in college? That takes work, that takes dedication, that takes commitment. And that's basically a full-time job. Maybe you're not cut out for that. Maybe you say, hey, I want to have a more relaxed springtime. I want to maybe play some lacrosse, but I still want to play competitive soccer. Well, that might be more your Division 3 program. And Devin can get into that a little bit further on. So understanding the different types of levels is massively important. The next thing is, so where do I belong? Well, one of the first things I would do is I would call your college coach or talk to your club coach and say, Coach Jake, Coach Devin, Coach Kelly, you've sent players to college, you coach college, where do I fit? Am I a D1 player? Am I a D2 player? Am I a D3 player? Once you start to get a sense of that as far as where you belong, then we could start making the next step, which is kind of finding schools that fit the criteria that you're playing at. So we move on to determining your college priorities. So let's just say Coach Jake says, I think you're a good Division 2 player. Start exploring that. So you now start to think to yourself, okay, do I want to stay in Connecticut? And do I want to play at Post University? Or do I want to play at a D2 school in Florida? Some good programs down there. So location is huge. Do you want to be able to come home on a Friday night because you had a bad day, pack up your laundry, bring it home, you get a home cooked meal and you put your mom does your laundry, or are you booking flights to get home? So these are massive considerations in that regards. Academically, how are your academics? Do you want to play in an Ivy League school? Or your academics more suited for a D2, D3, or a JUCO? So that's another consideration. And then other things such as campus culture. Do you want to be in the South? Do you want to be in the North? Do you want to stay in the Northeast? All these factors go into the types of schools that you want to be at. There's a thing called the broken leg test. And what that basically means is you're a freshman, you go to AIC, you're in preseason. This big thug of a senior comes in, 2 foots you from behind. You're in the hospital. The doctor comes and says, unfortunately, you've got to have surgery. Your soccer career is out for the next 18 months. So the question you have to ask yourself now is AIC the right school for me? Does it have my degree? Is it the right location? Does it have the right type of culture? So all these different factors that are non-soccer related have to go into determining whether you're at the right college. And if you can find the right college with those factors and a good soccer program, then you've hit the jackpot. So we've created this list. We're a freshman. We have 50 schools on this list that fit our criteria. So now we've got to start figuring out how do we get this towards the college coaches and how do we get our information to them. One of the things that's starting to take off, and I'm sure each one of these college coaches will be able to give their own opinion on it, is the social media aspect. Now, this is huge in football. It's huge in basketball. It's starting to become pretty huge in women's soccer. They do a fantastic job of marketing themselves. So one of the things we can start doing is creating a social media brand for ourselves. And it's a double-edged sword. I just want this to be a soccer social media brand. I don't want to see pictures of you on the beach or you at parties. I want to see just soccer. I want to see you training. I want to see you working hard. I want to see you scoring goals. So having the start and creating a social media presence is an important first step. The next step is emails. And these are probably the most important part of how you're going to communicate with a college coach. You need to be creative. Your emails need to be engaging. They need to be professional. They need to include all the important details such as your grade, your GPA, your schedule, your video that you've created. So you need to put all this together on an email. And then we need to start emailing these coaches on a pretty consistent basis, like I talked about. One caveat I want you to understand is in Division One, college coaches cannot communicate with you until June the 15th of your sophomore year. And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't apply to D2 anymore.
That's the same with Division Two. We're based off that rule as well.
June the 15th, sophomore year. And then D3 doesn't have that rule, Devin, I'm 90% sure. So the first few years of emailing, you're kind of just going to be emailing into the wind and you're getting no responses. But it's still a good way of understanding and developing and educating yourself on what to do and what not to do. Pet peeve of mine, and I've got lots of pet peeves, but we'll get into this one. You want to go to Quinnipiac, make sure you email the Quinnipiac coach. Don't email the Fairfield coach and say, I can't wait to be a Bobcat, because that email gets thrown in the garbage in about 1 second. And then you don't follow up with it. Oh, I'm sorry, coach. I didn't mean to send it to you. It just starts this whole thing like, oh my gosh, please do your homework at the beginning and you don't get yourself in that sort of mess in the first place. And we can talk about this. This is a whole subject that we can get into. The final thing that I want to talk about is the importance of showcases and clinics. Now, CFC is going to do a good job of getting you showcased. You are going to be put in front of the schools out and at the tournaments where we believe you're going to get the most bang for your buck, and the type of coaches that need to see you are going to be there. The flip side is ID clinics. So these are more individual based. You are going to start getting bombarded with invites. And I'm sure many of you are getting these all the time. So we have to figure out which ones are legitimate and which ones are kind of more just to get you to the ID clinic because the assistant coach needs to be paid. So there's a whole procedure in figuring out that. One of the first things I would advise you is just read how personal the email is. So if you get an ID clinic invite and say from Coach Devon and said, I saw you at PDA on Saturday, love the way you played left fullback. We have an ID clinic coming up in June. Love to see you there. That is a legitimate ID. That is a legitimate ID invite. If you get an invite that says, come and join our athletes this summer. Don't miss out. Um, um, Limited space. You know that's from a company that's really just trying to get you dollars. So um, do a little bit of investigative work and even talk to your coaches. Hey, is this legit or is this something that you think it's just more of a money grab? So to me, that is the 7 steps that I think we need to go through. And I'm going to stop sharing now so you can. So that's the 7 steps. And I know some of you are at step 1 and some of you might be at step 7, but that's the 7 processes that you have to go through. And as I said, we could spend an hour on each one. Hopefully you guys get a lot of my emails and you don't just put them in the trash straight away. But each one of those emails will talk about one of those 7 specific steps. If you don't get it, I'll give you my email address at the end and we can set up that. So we have 10 questions here. In no particular order. I'm just going to read them out. And I'm actually going to answer the first one. The first question sent in was, when should he start reaching out to coaches and going to camps? And I want to answer that because I'm going to play both sides here. I'm going to play female side and male side. Male soccer, college soccer, is a lot slower of a process than the female side. So actually, I'm going to bring in Devin for this one, and he can tell you, Devin, when do you start recruiting on them for your college soccer programs?
Yeah, so we're a little bit later than even most Division III schools. One thing to bear in mind is that there's different admissions processes for different schools. So some schools will have a hard early decision period, which usually the posted date for that is November 15th. But typically schools that have that firm early decision period are academically very rigorous, and they tend to do their recruiting well before that, usually during the summer period prior to the senior year. Our process typically, kids aren't committing to us before around November of their senior year, but sometimes it drags on into even April. So ours is a longer period. Now we have a rolling admissions process, so that's a little bit the reason for that. But to your point, Steve, we're probably, of all the types of college programs and the timing, we would be on the late end of all of them.
Gotcha, thank you. So I'm going to ask Kelly the same question. So you were at Fairfield and Princeton, Kelly. What are the timelines for schools like that?
Yeah, I think it's slowed down a little bit in the last 5 to 10 years, but I mean, we started identifying kids, I would say sophomore year. Some higher end Division I schools were going to some showcases in the spring looking at some freshmen. I think that's still happening as far as identifying, but the recruiting process for Division I mid-major and above was really happening sophomore into junior year. Like again, the identifying process sophomore year, and then starting post that June 15th deadline, starting to have conversations and really starting to have schools narrow their list down and kids narrow their list down. So that's Division I. Division III, like Devin said, is definitely a little bit later. I would say identifying is kind of still a similar process, just because the Division 1, Division 3 kind of feed off each other. Kids who are not being identified at Division 1 level might then turn to the Division 3 level. But I would say for Division 3, some of those top schools, you're looking at junior year, as far as like really starting that process, kind of deciding where you're going, and then formalizing that into your senior year.
So you get a sense of the differences. So if you're on the female side, probably time to start panicking. That's a joke. You don't have to panic. If you're on the male side, you can sit back and you can relax until you're basically a junior. But that freshman year, sophomore year for females is huge. If, as like Kelly said, you want to go to that Division 1 school, they are identifying players as sophomores and freshmen. So I wanted to get a sense of the difference. And it's the same on the boys' side. I talked to Division 1 college coaches at Quinnipiac. They're still looking at seniors. So Princeton are looking at freshmen, Quinnipiac men are looking at seniors. It's like a different landscape altogether. So something to consider when you're starting to do this process. Actually, so we've just answered the second one as well. Good job. We did kill two birds with one stone. Jake, so questions for you. What ID clinics or what ID camps, talking more about the timeline, what ID camps would you suggest the boys go to? So let's be specific. Freshman soccer play on the boys' side. What do you think about attending an ID camp at this age?
Pointless.
Pointless.
Yeah, I would say very similar to off the timeline of where you're looking to go. I'd say, I mean, for me, bit of advice, I'd probably say try and pick a list of 10 schools that you're really aiming for. And then if there's certain criteria or certain schools that you really want to go to, I'd say from your junior year, can you look to try and get in that school's ID clinic within the summer? Usually they'll host it within the summer, maybe late summer, starting into their own pre-season or something like that. So we'll have our ID clinic in August time, early August, just before pre-season. So the whole season rolls into one for us, and then from those kids coming in, then it's just starting the recruiting cycle from that year for us. So my word of advice would be try and pick the schools that you really want to go to and go to their specific ID clinics. The ones that you might get emailed about in a mass, email like Future 500 and all these sort of ID clinics. Sometimes they can be money grabbers. Sometimes they're good because a lot of coaches might attend them because they're probably being able to get money to coach there or recruit there and stuff like that, which is great. Sometimes you get a couple players from that, but it's not as specific compared to when you're actually at an ID clinic event for that college. So, say UMass, for example, they would have around 50 kids, or maybe on a 2-day event, and you can really hone in and look at the specifics. And they may invite a couple of other college coaches to, work that camp as well. So you might have not just UMass coaches, you might have other local schools also helping out too. So we had one of our coaches coached at the UMass clinic last summer. So if there's any kids who maybe Division 1 weren't able to compete at their level, they would happily, recommend them to us on our side and jump into the Division 2 level as well. So there's always a connection within the areas and the coaches and stuff like that. And is better off having that sort of personal conversation at the ID clinic so the coach knows your face and everything compared to an ID camp where there's 500 other kids.
Whole number?
Very difficult to stand out in those moments.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake. So he said it all. It goes back to that whole male versus female thing, the timelines, etc. So I have a question here which I'll answer. Is being on an RL team give him an edge, or should he be on a National League team? So should he be on an ECRL or an ECNL? And I'm going to be real honest about that. Again, it really all depends upon where you want to go. So if you're looking at, we're going to say Princeton, for example, Well, actually, I can tell you the stats on the girls' side. On the girls' side, 85% of kids who play Division One college play in the National League or the GA. And it's not because necessarily they're better players, but what it is because it's just an easier way for the college coaches to recruit, because they're going to go to one of those big National League events and they're going to see all the kids they want to see at this one event. So it's like fishing in a barrel to these guys. There might be some, and Adam and myself were just talking beforehand. And Adam, you got a kid going to Providence and Central, I think I saw.
Yeah, and then one going to Rhode Island as well, goalkeeper.
So there's three players that are in the RL that are going to play D1. And notice they're all local because the coaches can get out to see these kids without having to fly all over the country. So it does skew. If you want to play that high level D1, I'm telling you that, yeah, that is a tough road. And that's a tough climb. That's why they go to these big National League events. Can you play D1 ECRL? Yes, you can. Adam just showed you there's three kids going there. ECRL is brilliant for getting kids in D2 and D3 schools. And we'll ask Devin and Jake where they recruit, which is important. So it can serve all bases. If you really want to go after that Division One, then yeah, go for that National League position. Again, there's a caveat. Are you going to play? So it's great playing in the National League but if you sit on the bench and you get 10 minutes a game, that's not helping your development. That's not helping your exposure. And you're just there because of the badge. You'd be better off at an ECN RL team playing 100% of the time, and going to the right schools. We keep going back to that. That's that be realistic comment. Okay, so that was a long way of saying, yes, you can do it, but the climb's a little harder. But as I said, you've got to be playing, which is the number one thing for you at your age. Riding the bench isn't going to help you in that aspect. Okay, Devin, I've got one for you. What is the best way to present yourself from D2 to D3 and to use your academics to get into that school? I think you get what they're trying to say is basically, if you're academically inclined, you went to Middlebury College, there's a perfect example. How does how does soccer help you get into those schools?
Yeah. And it's a little bit institution specific, but for sure, some of the harder academic schools do have an opportunity to attract special prospects of all different types. It's not specific just to athletics, but athletics is part of it. So they might be able to bring somebody into their school that doesn't have a typical academic profile, or the academic profile is just a little bit lower than what is typical for those schools. The other part about it is there's other institutions that have merit-based scholarships. A lot of the top academic schools don't have those merit scholarships, but a lot of other schools do have them. And so the academic side of it, and that's really one of the only two ways that Division III can help you financially, would either be the merit-based money or the need-based money. The athletics don't play a part, but that, we get some phenomenal student athletes at Western New England who are attracted in part by our merit scholarship program. So it can either help a strong academic resume, can help open the door in a school which you would normally not probably gain acceptance, or it can allow you to reduce the cost at some of these schools based on their merit scholarships.
Thank you, Devin. So I'm working with clients from all over the country, all over the world at the moment, and just give you an understanding of what goes on at a school like Yale. Yale will say to me, listen, I like this player, but I'm not going to not waste, that's not the right word. I'm not going to use one of my slots on him. So they'll say to me, if he can get in Yale University on his own, he'll have a roster spot, but I can't go to the school and vouch for that. So that's kind of the Division One version of what Devin's just explained to you, how academics can help you, or where you need academics to get into school because the coach is not going to go to bat for you. I hope that clears up that sort of high academic sort of situation. Kelly, I've got one for you here. This one's tough, so I'm going to give it to you. How can parents best support their child's dream of playing college soccer?
Uh, I think it goes back to your point of be realistic, right? I think listen to what coaches are telling your child, right? And if a club coach is saying, I think Division III is the best fit for you, and they still want to pursue Division I, sure, have at for a little bit, but like take the messaging you're getting, right? If Division I coaches are not responding, they're not getting back to you, they're saying, we don't have, you're not the right fit, we don't have space, whatever it is, like take that messaging, take what you're getting, and trust the people who know your child the best, which is currently your club coach or the high school coach. And ask them for support. It's a partnership there, right? You're all kind of wanting the same thing. You want your child to go to the best possible place they can go to. And so no one is trying to undercut or undersell your kid. We're just trying to help you find the best possible fit. And so really partner with those coaches and don't think that you know more than they do. And let your kid drive the process. Let your kid email. Let your kid do research. Let your child have the conversations with the coaches. Like really let them drive this process, because at the end of the day, as a college, when I was in the shoes as a college coach, like I didn't want to hear from the parents. Like that's not who I'm recruiting, right? I'm recruiting the child or the student. And so let them do that work. Let them advocate for themselves. The first couple conversations, the first couple go arounds, it might be awkward, and just kind of got to let them sit back and figure it out. But let them really drive this process, because like I said, the coach wants to know who the player is, not who the parents are. And so just support them in that and encourage them to kind of own this process and lead this process.
Brilliant. Good job. I think that's great answer, Kelly. I agree with everything she said, and I think the importance is that listen to the feedback from your coaches, because then they've got no gain to say whether you're a D1 or D2 or D3. They're really trying to help you with that process. And yeah, you could have your stretch schools. By all means, I'll dream big, but we've got to be realistic and got to focus on some of those schools that are probably more realistic. Jake, I have one for you, but I think we just answered it, but we'll see if we can take another spin of it. What would your first steps be to recommend a younger player who hasn't played soccer that long, who wants to play in college? It's not an easy one, but I'll give that one for you.
Just play as much as possible. That's the only way you're going to improve. Getting on the field, getting as many touches on the ball as you possibly can, whether it's not even in season. I know the American model is different to the European model and everything like that, and weather permitting and stuff during the winter can be tough, but just play as much as possible if you haven't played a lot of soccer. The thing is with certain colleges, or the amount of colleges out there, there's a lot of different avenues that you can go into. It's not just Division One, Division Two, Division Three, be all and end all, like you've explained. There's so my college, we have a development program. We have a large roster squad. So we have 55 players that the school are requiring me to bring in. So I have a 25-man first team roster. I have a 20-man development roster. If the maths add up, I probably have 5 or 6 either side as well that will integrate too. And then injuries and everything like that happens. So there's colleges out there that will support players' development needs too. Not just some colleges have set. So Division One now, they have a budget, a cap on their roster now being 28 players in the men's side. I know that. So Whereas Division Two, we don't have a cap on our roster size, so we can help those players who maybe wish that they wanted to go to Division One, might have to drop down into Division Two and maybe be on a development team, or they aspired to be, on a Division Two squad, but they might not be good enough for the starting in an NE10 game. We might have to put them in a development team. We've just created a development league with Franklin Pierce, Assumption, St. A's, actually trying to get a couple more teams where you're actually giving growth and time to, younger players who are coming from high school and maybe aren't right at the time to experience the college level straight away and get used to the speed of the game. Division Two is quite different, and there's a lot of international kids. So you could be playing against a 25, 26-year-old Spanish player coming straight out of high school. Is the level going to match up straight away? I'm not too sure. So we can help develop players in our development team playing against other maybe Americans or kids who just need a little bit of time to, get better. And that's what's happening a lot around the country as well, because obviously I think there's a lot of demand for soccer in the American community now as well, to be fair. So like we're saying, do your research, and if colleges are offering that to help your development stuff, then obviously you can take it. Obviously, not saying just at our college, there's a lot of schools out there, and then there's JUCO as well. So JUCO, you can obviously go for a couple of years, get your grades up, and get your feel, and actually play for your freshman, sophomore year, and then it can take you right into a Division One school, which there's a really good, strong pathway for a lot of players to do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Jake. One of the things Jake just touched on, and just want to, and Kelly mentioned it as well, is how the landscape of college soccer is changing. And I'd say in the last 12 months, it's probably changed more than ever. And I'd say for you guys is potential players going into college, it's probably, especially if you're looking in Division One, it's probably changed for the negative. And Jake mentioned it, that word transfer portal. But back in the day when Kelly coached at Princeton, they probably never used the transfer portal. Same at Fairfield, and we were the same at Quinnipiac. Transfer portal has become huge, and one of the reasons that Jake touched on, many Division One programs are now limited to 28 players. Now, for the most part, it's the big schools with big football programs and big basketball programs. But a lot of these schools are now having to lock their rosters at 28. So if they've got 36 kids on the team, they've got to find homes for 8 players because they can't have them on the team no longer. So they go in the transfer portal, which is basically a way of players being exposed to other colleges. Now the colleges are going into the transfer portal first, then they're going after the freshmen. So that's really changed the game at the Division One level. How does it affect Jake at Division Two? Well, now there's more Division One players that are trickling down to Division Two, which helps. I'm sure it's helping him in that regards. And then Division One and Division Three are very tightly intertwined. So I can imagine there's now for Devon, there's a lot of Division One players that can't get a home in Division One that now potentially can get a home in Division Three. So this has all happened in the last 6 months, and it's changed the game dramatically.
It can also help in the other way as well. So I've had a few players do really well at Division Two level and now receiving
move
top
up.
scholarships to Division One schools too. So it can work both ways. It doesn't just work the trickle down effect. It can also trickle up as well.
Absolutely. So
It's a crazy world.
What was that, Jay?
It's a crazy world, that transfer portal.
It has changed.
Spend 2 minutes on there, your eyes will wander, and it's crazy.
And that's something I say to the players is, hey, listen, go to this school. And if you are really that player you think you are, then you can look to transfer. The kid who scored the winner for Vermont, Jake, didn't he play for Bridgeport?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he played for Bridgeport. Scored the winner for Vermont in the men's national final. But he was a Division Two player with Bridgeport the previous year, then transferred using the transfer portal. So that's a lot of information. I'm sure your heads are spinning. What we are going to do now is we're going to open it up to the floor. So there's usually about silence for like 2 minutes when people become brave and speak. Anybody got any questions? If you do, turn your mics off and just ask away. And if you want to be specific to one of the coaches, by all means. Who's going to be brave and go up first? Or am I going to pick on somebody? There's the silence.
Ask something,
Yes,
Steve.
yes. How you doing?
Good. How you been?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
I actually have a fantastic resource in Kelly, so I might actually defer later, but it might be helpful to parents out there. My question, I have zero clue of what to do when an offer actually comes in and there's a timeline to that. Um, I don't know because it might be an offer, but you might be still considering other options in schools. So is there any info you can provide? And I emailed you too, so you can ignore
I
the
I just saw that. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer it from a parent's perspective, and then I'm going to let the coaches answer it from what because there's two sides to this. So you get an offer and they say you've got 3 weeks to make a decision. I don't know, is that relative? Is it less than that or longer?
We got an end of June.
Okay.
We
Gosh.
got an end of June.
Okay. So from a parent's decision, what I say to the parents, if you own my clients at the moment, what I would say, and coaches you might not want to listen to this, I would go back to all the schools that you've been in heavy conversations with, and I would tell them, I got an offer from a school and they've given me till June to give me an answer. And what that will do to the coaches, it'll put that little seed of doubt in their mind of, I did like that player. Man, maybe I should go back in. Because coaches are never 100% sure. So there's always that seed of doubt, like, did I miss this one? Or, you know what? I think I'm going to go back in and make an offer. So I hate to use the word leverage, but you do have some leverage with those schools. So that's how I would suggest you do it if a client. Devin, from a coach's perspective, I know you probably hate my answer.
No, it's you know, at Western New England, our process is very different than, say, many of the Division I programs in which I've worked. If we were to make a scholarship offer, there would be a quick deadline associated with that, probably a couple weeks. And, there is leverage being exerted in both directions. And I think what's important is that a person doesn't commit unless they can stand by that commitment.
Correct.
You hear often in the media about decommitments, and I think that's a unfortunate development because and things are so different nowadays with the transfer portal and everything, but there still is a relationship, and you want to enter into that relationship honestly, and hopefully that's the truth in both directions. So if a person is going to commit but then gets a different offer later down the road and breaks that commitment, that would not be my my suggestion as to how to navigate the process. I don't think it's ever good to be in that situation, whether you're on the player side or on the coach's side. From our end, at Western New England, I don't want anybody in our program that doesn't really want to be there. So if they're not 100% sure that Western New England is the right place for them in all regards, and I think the broken leg test is a very apt one, Steve, I encourage them to look more. But there is always understand that there is an endpoint. We can only have so many players realistically on our team. And as you mentioned, many of the Division Ones are coming up against a hard cap of 28 players. So, you can miss opportunities if you wait too long. But like you said, it's not an exact process. As much as I just think operating with integrity and good faith on both parts tries, I think can avoid a lot of problems.
Yeah, I agree. I had that conversation with a player not more than 10 minutes before we jumped on this call, and I I'm saying use the word leverage, but what I don't like is short, and Devin just hit it. I don't like short windows to commitment. I want my kid to come to Quinnipiac because she wants to come to Quinnipiac, not because she's got an artificial deadline because the coach is panicking that he loses her. I think we need to get into more specifics about that, and I'll respond to your email. Jake, anything for you to add from that one? Because that's an interesting one.
It's just timing more than anything else, and like Devin said, being honest. It all depends on what deadline you've been given and how long you've got. Like, if you've got another year until, it's really make or break time, then if it's not the right time, then don't do it. If you don't feel comfortable in making that decision, then that's your decision at the end of the day. If you do feel comfortable and you feel that with your gut instincts and you feel that it's right for all parties in terms of the coach and the college, and you have that relationship with the coach, I think that's a really big thing as well. Having that relationship with the coach is so important because ultimately you're going to be they're your main source of sort of relationship away from parents and stuff while you're at college and stuff, and they're the main people you're going to be having those chats with around when you're not playing, when you are playing, if you're injured, if something's happened in the dorms, all that stuff. They become your safe bodyguard more than anything else. So if everything's right and you feel comfortable with the coach and everything's honest, like Devin said, um, then it's all about up to you making sure that you make the right decision. You never know if it's going to be the right decision until you're in it, and ultimately that's the sort of hindsight decision, right, at the end. But if you have a good gut feeling and you feel that everything's cooperative more than anything else, then um, sometimes it's better making a decision because after then you actually end up playing better. I remember when I was an academy player going for a pro deal and I were playing some awful football. I was too nervous before games. I ended up committing to AIC in the February before I joined in the August. After the February, I committed my scholarship and everything. I played my best football up until May, and I was probably more inclined to get a professional deal, and because I'd already made that decision and I felt comfortable with my skin, that I'd made that decision quite early on, and I was set, and I had a goal, and I was driven to make sure I had that, even though I still wanted to be a professional at the same time. So sometimes making an earlier decision can be beneficial too, because if you do leave it too late, you might not get what's actually being offered on the table straight away too.
Yeah, I'll just add, Steve, like I'm a huge believer in transparency, right? Like every one of these conversations is just a way to start building trust with the coach you're potentially going to play for or other coaches you're going to like. So like transparency with the school who made the offer and say, hey, listen, I'm not this far along with other schools right now. I might need more than the week or the three, whatever it is. You got, it sounds like a week left, but end of June, you said. But like, I just need a little bit more time because I'm just not at the same place with other schools. And then transparency with other schools. Here's what I got. Where do we stand? And just like, again, I think that just starts to build the trust. I never loved when I would ask another kid, where are you looking? And they're like, I don't want to say. That's not great, right? Like, and so I just think as honest, there's no harm ever in being too honest. And I truly think also that like the other schools you're talking to might not be in the same timeline or in the same, they might think they have more time with you. And so just by saying, hey, listen, I have this offer, that could speed things up for them. And then you got two options to weigh. So again, I don't love ever like the kind of sneaky, like, I don't want to mention stuff, like just throw it all out there. And I don't think there's any harm in that from any perspective there. And I also think everything's negotiable, right? So they say end of June, hey, I truly need till middle of June. I truly need to whatever. And I think that communication and keeping those lines of communication open is really helpful.
And if a coach really wants the player, and even though they give a hard deadline, they will wait a couple
Yep,
extra days.
for sure.
They will give an extra week because they really want the player. They won't want to break. They won't want to break that bond personally with a player as well. Like if they really want one, they will wait as long as it needs to wait. Sometimes, if you really want that player, because ultimately everyone's looking for that specific player. You might be holding out for a left-footed centre back realistically, and you're like, this might be my only shot and chance. And if I really commit to that deadline, you might lose yourself out on a left-footed centre back. So you might push the boundary a little bit in terms of, give or take at the same time. And so, like Kelly said, that transparency, just it's all about communication at the end of the day.
Great. Alessandra, you had a question in the chat, I think I saw. So the question, Alessandra, for some reason I can't activate that. Technology is not my thing, but I think you were asking about the recruiting services.
Yeah, so is there
CFC, right?
yeah, NCSA, is there any benefit to signing up for any of those recruiting websites?
Well, since I run my own, I think I'm the wrong guy to answer this. Because that's what I do, so NSCA is Walmart. It's one size fits all. It's the giant. I don't know whether these guys will use. Jake, do you use I can't even say it. NSCA?
And CSA, I've used it in terms of I have to bring in 55 players, so sometimes I need to push to get 5 extra players on a team, and if there's kids who are interested, and it also works both ways. So on NCSA, they can favorite your college, and that can put in a shortlist for me to look at. I've got, 15, 20, 50 kids who are interested in AIC. So I can also filter through that and see which players fall in the pool for myself. I wouldn't say it's the best sort of website in the world. It's better to be more direct with an actual direct email than going through those websites, because realistically, everything's at the touch of your fingertips, right? You can send an email directly instead of having to go through those platforms. But sometimes they do come in hand in certain incomes, like, certain times anyway. But they're sometimes just a bit of fluff at the same time.
So perfect segue for what I do. So you might have seen this when you registered for the tryouts, although not many people actually registered for the service. But as for CFC, I think we do a good job with the college recruiting aspect. We get you guys to showcases. I've taken on the role of the recruiting coordinator. But as you're starting to figure out, I'm sure it's very specific to you and your family and your needs and where you want to go. So, like I said, NCSA is like the Walmart of it. It's just like they'll throw everything out there. What we created a service for CFC is an individualized service where we will have Zoom calls with the families. We'll start to create the list for you. We'll work on your video to see if it's up to standard. And then we'll guide you as to the types of schools that you should be looking at. And then we have check-ins. So I offer that service in conjunction with CFC. And it was on the registration page, but I think we didn't really do a good job highlighting it. But there is that service out there, and it's a year commitment. And it basically just gets you organized. And if you're a freshman, it gets you organized. If you're a sophomore, it starts to say, okay, you've got to do this, this, and this. And if it's a junior and a senior player, it's really what you need to move to that next level. So wherever you are in the process, we can help you get to that next step. So CFC does offer that service through Steve Coxon's Soccer Network. And guarantee I'm going to send you an email about it when we hang up, or maybe tomorrow morning. So don't worry, you'll find out all the information. But some guys don't need it. Some guys can do all this on their own. Some people just need that little bit of guidance. And that's why you're on this call, because you need that little bit of guidance, because there is a mismatch of information out there. So it's trying to find out what is real and what's a waste of time. Anybody else got questions? Kelly's answering them. Kelly, you're good, huh? You're answering on the chat as well. I'm impressed.
I'm a teacher, Steve.
Yeah, there you go. Anybody out there? There must be. You've got 3 college coaches on the chat here. It's an awesome opportunity to get on there and ask those questions. We'll give you all the answers, so we're all good. All right. Last chance. Eric, were you going to speak? No. So if you have no further questions, then like I said, we will follow up with an email. I actually have an online course which I'm going to give to all the CFC parents. So all those notes you've taken, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you that whole step by step by step, and it's going to break down every one of those steps into real minute details. So I'm going to figure out a way to get all that information to you guys. And then once you've looked through all that information, if you still got questions, please utilize me as a resource. I'm here to help you guys. So I'll jump on a Zoom call anytime and we'll chat for 10 minutes and we'll just try to figure out the situation you're in. And then use guys like Kelly, Jake, and Devin and Adam because they've been around this game for a long time. And having college coaches as a resource is beautiful because they're in the weeds. You know, they're not just an outsider looking in, giving you suggestions. This is what they do day in, day out. So please utilize me as a resource and utilize you guys as a resource. We do have one more question coming in here.
Yeah, it's an important one.
It's an important one.
Yeah.
Okay. What do college scouts look for in a player on the field? Woof.
I'm actually, you can leave the on the field off for me. Like maybe I harp on this too much on the girl side is just character. Like college coaches are going to go to games and our job is to see potential within a matter of minutes, right? Potential on the field. So I'll let other people maybe talk about on the field soccer piece, but like what I think is the most underrated, most important thing is who you are as a human being and what your character is. Are you a good teammate? Are you being positive? One time I remember specifically being at a showcase, girl got fouled. She got up, took the ball, and kicked it at the girl. And we went right off the list right away. Right. And so, like, again, you're going to be our family for the next 4 years of your life, if not longer. And so, we need to make sure that we have the best people we can at our institutions. And so, I cannot say enough how important character is. And just like, speak about a good way to, stand out at an ID clinic. Go up to the coach and just be like, hey, how are you? What can I help you with?
Mhm.
Like little things like that. Like you want to talk about we talked about transfer portal and all these kids that are in the mix, right? And how do you stand out? You're all good players, right? Or you wouldn't be at these ID clinics. But like, what are you doing as a person to help you stand out? It's the little things. Can I help you with the cones? Or just collect the cones? Or just go get the balls, right? How hard are you working? I think is going to help you stand out and be that extra little touch. And that's like ultimately when we were deciding between a couple of players on our list. In Ivy League, you only have 6 or 7 spots per year. And so you're taking lots of kids, narrowing it down to 6 or 7 spots. So when you're debating on a few kids, like ultimately the kid who had the best character, the kid who worked the hardest, right? The intangibles is the kid we chose. And so I cannot say it enough. And I think, again, I focus on it a little bit too much, but those things really matter and stuff you need to pay attention to is like, who are you as a human and who am I going to welcome into my home for the next 4 years? And so other people can talk about on the field stuff, but I think that really matters.
I think, Kelly, all the coaches are going to agree with you and pretty much talk about. I think Gino Oriana did you see that interview about him and the body language of players and kind of there's one of the greatest coaches in the world at any sport, and he's talking about character and body language, and he's not talking about their skill set. And for me, Kelly said, and the best teams we had is when the kids are the best kids, and we were all together in this one big fight. The worst kids, once we have one bad apple, she could ruin our season. And so the job of a coach was to weed out that we don't recruit that bad apple because I feel like on the girls' side in particular, I don't know whether I should even be saying that, but one bad apple can because the girls can really pull away and start forming cliques and that's
The lads are just as bad.
oh they are well
Oh yeah.
so
I would say on the field specifically, the character stuff and everything, I completely agree with. On the field, a lot of people think, oh, what are my weaknesses or do I need to improve my weaknesses? Forget that. Hone in on your strengths, and the coach is going to pick you for your strengths, what you have on the pitch. not for the weaknesses that you have. So if you are left-footed and your right foot is literally for standing on, don't make it apparent that your right foot is for standing on. Make sure that your left foot is the best that it's ever been when you're playing in an ID clinic, because that's what a coach is going to pick you for, not because, oh, his right foot's for standing on. And if you're a midfielder and you're brilliant at short 10, 15-yard passes, play 10, 15-yard passes consistently, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. The ones who make a mistake and get on with their game at the end of the day, that shows good character as well as, being a good person at the same time. So even if you're a quiet person and you just go about your business in the right way when you're on the pitch, you're respectful to the referees, or how you communicate to your teammates also matters a lot when we're trying to pick a player at the same time. So I'd say focus on your strengths, which is the biggest thing. Don't try and do something that you're not. If you're a right back and you start taking 15 step overs on, when that's not your thing, why are you doing it? Just focus on your strengths, and that's going to get you to your set career, right?
I think he looked at me when he mentioned left-footed and right. I don't think I've ever used my right foot. I don't think I've ever headed the ball in 25 years. So I still made it. So we're all good. Guys, can't thank you enough. I think this was really great. Having these coaches on is absolutely fantastic. I think if we do this again, we could really pick a topic and really hone in on that. But I think this was a fantastic starting point. And if you enjoyed it, email Tony and Victor and let them know, hey, let's do more of these, because we will do whatever we need, whatever it takes to help you guys out. So thanks again, guys. I will try and figure this out to share it, because I did record it. So if anybody wasn't on this, we can fire it off to them. But coaches, you guys were awesome. Thank you. And parents, players, thank you. And have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care now. Bye.